I mean, it's so hard when you have a thyroid condition, especially if you're hypothyroid, because you're exhausted, right? Like you're oversleeping, you wake up tired, your muscles are weak, like you don't want to move your body, you have poor workout recovery, you don't want to do anything, but it's so important to like at least walk, and do just gentle movements. I love, love, love yoga. Pilates as well is amazing. Gentle weightlifting or using your own body weight to support that movement. But yeah, it could be very hard. And same thing for the other side of Graves' disease because your heart rate is so elevated, you get easily fatigued. Your muscles are weak as well, but it's important to do something to not have that muscle wasting.
Welcome to Core Connections. I'm Erica Ziel, and this is your space for real health, fitness, and wellness solutions. For over 20 years, I've been helping women just like you take control of their health so you can get back to living actively and pain-free. Ready to transform? Let's dive in. Well, welcome everyone back to the Core Connections podcast. And today my guest is Dr. Elena Genik, and I am so excited to bring her on. And I know you ladies are as well. I feel like the topic of thyroid and labs and thyroid health and all of that is something that comes up often. I know I get a lot of questions about it. And so Dr. Elena is our expert on this, and I'm really, really excited to welcome you to the podcast today.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. Really excited for this conversation.
So, Elena, will you just start by sharing a little bit about you and why you now help women with thyroid health?
Of course. So it's been a long journey with my health. It started back in 2020 when I realized I had PCOS and I went to the doctor and they were like, "Oh, well, you know what? Here's some birth control." And I was like, "No, I don't want birth control. Like, what else can I do?" They're like, "That's it. Bye." And I was like, "Okay, that was weird." So as a pharmacist, I was like, well, why do all these women come in with metformin for their hormone issues? Like, I didn't really understand it. It's not something that they teach you in pharmacy school. And then I started digging deeper into hormones and root causes. And then as I was on that journey of like functional medicine, bam, I got hit with a thyroid condition, which started off as me always complaining about symptoms of hypothyroidism. Like I was always cold, I was always fatigued, I was losing hair, I was constipated, and I go to the doctor and they're like, "You're fine." And then I took like some vitamins and all of a sudden I flipped into this hyperthyroid state. I developed Graves' disease, I developed thyroid eye disease, and I just felt really, really unheard still by more and more doctors and specialists. And, now that I had this background of functional medicine, I used that for myself. And I was just like, this is like, women are not getting this. So I just wanted to take my journey and share it with others and help as many people as I can.
Yeah, well, I love the work that you're doing. It is definitely needed for sure. So you mentioned something when you said you went from
Hypo to
hypo to
hyper.
hyper. That's right. So will you talk about that? Because I think that's not very understood when women can flip flop from one to the other. And will you also explain the difference of the two, please?
Absolutely. So I started out years ago with all of these symptoms of hypothyroidism. So hypothyroidism is basically when your thyroid is working too slowly. So everything is going to slow down in the body. So just, you know, you're going to be constipated, you're going to be tired, you're going to be sleeping a lot, you're going to be cold, weakness, like you just kind of like in this little cocoon and it's really hard to push through. And as a woman, you're told to push through all of these things. So that's really hard. And at some point, I got really frustrated with going to the doctors and them looking at my labs and saying, well, it's fine. It must not be your thyroid. And I was like, but this every thyroid symptom in the book. I also had low iron at the time and they looked at my labs and said it's fine, but then I looked at it and I was like that wasn't fine. So I started taking these like thyroid stimulating supplements and I guess they really worked. because it drove me into having all of these hyperthyroid symptoms, which is the opposite of hypothyroidism. So, too much thyroid hormone is in your body and it's stimulating everything, like your body's on overdrive. So, you have increased heart rate, tremors, palpitations. It can cause anxiety. You're going to the bathroom more, which can lead to weight loss, but it's also giving you increased appetite. So it can cause weight gain, insomnia, just all these things. Yeah, it was terrible to flip flop from one to the other. And then I had been diagnosed with Graves' disease. So found out that it's an autoimmune condition where, it's your body mistaking a foreign something, any trigger, right? And it's taking it out on your organ. In my case, it was my thyroid.
So will you talk a little bit more about the autoimmune conditions, right? So on what you dealt with was Graves' disease, which is hyper, and which I feel like is more common is actually Hashimoto's, which is the other end of the spectrum. Can you talk about that a little bit? And I guess the autoimmunity thing specifically, because I feel like so many women are getting, quote, diagnosed with autoimmune left and right. And I would say Hashimoto's is the number one that I hear from women. And I feel like they get this diagnosis and they're like, okay, well, that's it. I have this diagnosis. I got to deal with it, for the rest of my life. And I'm like, whoa, pump the brakes for a minute. There's a lot we can do.
There's so much you can do, and that's so true that that's what a lot of doctors say, and because they're not trained that way. Like, I went through the system, and we're not trained to find the root cause and stop the autoimmunity, or trained to, like, figure out how to fix the symptoms and just let the autoimmunity ride, which is insane, like, insane. But maybe a topic for later. So an autoimmune condition is when your body mistakenly attacks, I hate that word, one of your own tissues or organs, thinking that it's like a foreign invader, basically. And I hate to say that sentence of like, oh, your body is attacking itself. It's actually a defense mechanism. Like your body is just protecting you. It thinks something is foreign because, the wires got crossed, right? But there are a few autoimmune thyroid conditions, which are Hashimoto's, Graves' disease, and if you're lucky like me, thyroid eye disease, and they all have to do with the thyroid. So Hashimoto's is an autoimmune condition where your body attacks, for lack of a better word, your thyroid, and it causes hypothyroidism. So it causes your thyroid to slow down. And it actually, in Hashimoto's, you can see damage to the thyroid hormone. So catching it early is really important to prevent further damage. A lot of people uh, might have to be on thyroid hormone replacement because they already have so much damage to their thyroid gland that cannot create thyroid hormone on its own. And then you have the flip side of that, which is Graves' disease. And with the Graves' disease, it's, again, your thyroid attacking itself or your body attacking your thyroid and causing too much thyroid hormone in the body. And it causes symptoms of hyperthyroidism, again, where everything is sped up. So, and then thyroid eye disease is associated. It could be with both conditions, but usually happens with Graves' disease and it causes all these symptoms of the eyes, but it's actually a separate condition from Graves' disease. Like once you get thyroid eye disease, it's its own thing. And it causes inflammation to the tissue behind the eyes. So it can cause eye bulging where you have that like staring or surprised look, can cause a lot of pain, blurry vision, double vision, so many things. I'm like, wait, um, asymmetry of the eyes, like one eye might be bulging and the other might have this uneven look in the face. And it can cause a lot of emotional damage too, because, can look in the mirror and not recognize yourself anymore.
Well, Elena, so glad you're doing all this work. And I'm sorry you've had to deal with all this yourself, but so many times those are the things that actually help us have so much more like eye-opening passion for life, right? And helping others. So all of us we've talked about to this point, let's talk about what are some of the root causes that can cause either direction of the, thyroid conditions. And even if you don't have, quote, an autoimmune disease or, how you haven't been diagnosed with autoimmune yet. I know you talked a lot about the science stuff. So even if you're getting your labs tested, and we'll talk about labs in a little bit, but even if you're getting your labs tested and labs are moving in the direction of out of normal. And when I say that, out of functional range normals, so that we can catch these things before they become even worse. So, can you first start off and talk about what are some of the most common root causes of these thyroid autoimmune diseases?
Sure. And these can apply for almost any autoimmune disease, really. But what I see commonly with the thyroid, well, I think I'd like to first start off by saying that in order for autoimmunity to exist, there are usually three things that have to be present. So there's the genetic predisposition, some kind of environmental trigger, which could be toxins in the air or an infection. And third is intestinal permeability, which is what people say leaky gut. So it's basically, you have your gut barrier and things are able to get through the gut barrier that aren't supposed to, and they reach your body system, and your body's just like, whoa, what is this like invader? And it freaks out. So, that being said, one of the biggest things that I see in my practice, I have not seen one thyroid patient yet who didn't have this, was something going on in the gut, whether it's bacterial, candida, or yeast, or a parasite, and some level of leaky gut going on. I've seen that in almost every single person. But that doesn't mean that it's necessary to have that. There's definitely a lot of other triggers like chronic stress, other toxins, environmental toxins, mold, Lyme, EBV, things like that. Um, Nutrient deficiencies, which are often caused by things going on in the gut, but can just be nutrient deficiencies on their own. And a really big one that I see a lot is insulin resistance or blood sugar dysregulation as well.
Yeah. So, with the blood sugar dysregulation, do you see that with people that have just poor diets, or do you also see that with people that are actually eating really well and there's something deeper going on?
It's definitely something deeper. It's not always the diet. I mean, very, very often it is. I see a lot of people that they just, you know, maybe it's the order in which they eat their foods, they have a lot of carbs, but they eat them really early in the day before, and they don't have it with any healthy fats or proteins, which really makes a big difference. But also chronic stress can cause insulin resistance as well, even if you have a perfect diet.
Yeah. I think that's so important to reiterate. And I know sometimes it's so hard when the stressors, and there's so many different stressors of life that you've hit on some, we can have and I like to call them, just quote, bugs, as a kind of umbrella term for what might be dysregulated in our gut. That in itself can be a stressor. But then also looking at just our life, right? We tend to put so much on our plate, especially as women, and overburden ourselves. And we do a lot of talking about nervous system regulation on this podcast because I think that that is so, so important. When we start talking about doing all the right things, and we just really have to sometimes take a step back and be like, okay, we've got to do some stuff to help calm our nervous system as well. And I'm sure you're really big and on that as well.
Absolutely. I think that mental health is a huge part of all this, and just the way that we treat ourselves, the way that we talk to ourselves, the way that we think about ourselves. It really does affect everything. And like I said before, and I hate to say that my body is attacking itself, like my body is protecting me, there's nothing wrong. It's just it's trying its best.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about labs more, or let's get into talking about labs because I think labs are very misunderstood, very under tested. I mean, I see time and time again, clients are like, oh, I have my TSH levels and it's fine. And I'm like, okay, girl, that is not enough. You have to look at so much more than just your TSH level. And that's where I feel like so many women they're not getting the I don't like the word diagnosis, right? Because when we look at diagnosis from a functional perspective, it's just really what are the symptoms going on in your body? That's what it shows us, right? But for lack of, from a medical perspective, they're not getting diagnosed soon enough, essentially. And they're going undiagnosed with, say, an autoimmune thyroid condition for much longer than they would have if we'd start actually looking at other markers for our thyroid and also looking at functional ranges. Because I'll have clients sometimes, I'm like, hey, if insurance will cover it, ask your doctor to order and I'll send them a list. And most all the time they refuse to check antibodies. And it just makes my blood boil. They're like, well, but your TSH is fine. Why would we check your antibodies? And I'm like, because we're going to test your antibodies to make sure that they don't have autoimmune going on in the background. Because I have seen it in even children that have autoimmune or have antibody markers, but their other thyroid labs look fine. So that can indicate to me, like, hey, let's make sure that we're really doing what we can to make sure environment, gut, all those things, right? So it's like I get really passionate about it too, just understanding that aspect of it. So, Lena, I'm going to let you talk about what are the labs we should be checking for our thyroid? And if you want to talk about ranges, you can. That's something we could also just like put in the show notes, kind of in functional ranges for people to be able to refer to after.
Of course, and oh my god, I 100% agree with you. How many people come in to see me and they've never had their free T3 checked? I'm like, "Are you for real right now?" A full thyroid panel is so important. I mean, TSH is not even a reliable marker. So, and I tell everyone that I don't even care what your TSH is. I don't look at it. It's not important to me. It means nothing to me. It's cool if you have it, like good on you, but not important. And the range for that is so, like could be point 0.5 and then to 4 is considered normal. But, when you're looking at it in functional medicine, you want it anywhere from, zero point 0.5 to 1.5 or 2 or 1 to 2. I mean, the functional ranges are like so scattered also, so that is hard to discuss. And the labs are always so different. But yeah, everyone always looks at TSH, but it really isn't a reliable marker because so many other things can affect it. I mean, it's actually not even a thyroid hormone. It's a pituitary hormone. So it's getting a lot of feedback from other hormones in your body as well, like cortisol and estrogen and all this stuff that's going to affect it and make it be totally off. So I don't look at that. And a lot of doctors will test for T4, which is helpful, but it is your inactive thyroid hormone. It's not giving you the whole picture. So especially if you're on thyroid hormone. So if you're taking something like levothyroxine, right, that's a synthetic form of T4. And sometimes doctors give you that and they only check your T4 and they're not looking at your T3, which is your active thyroid hormone. So your T3 is your active thyroid hormone. It gets created basically from T4. So, but sometimes that gets blocked. You can have T4, but you're not getting enough T3. So you need to be checking both of those. So yeah, T4 helpful, but also not the most important. In my eyes, I think that everyone should be getting their free T3. And I do get a lot of clients that come to me with a total T3. And I'm like, this is really not telling me much either, because when you're looking at the total T3, you're looking at your free T3 and you're looking at your inactive T versus T3. So you're not getting a clear picture of how much active hormone you actually have in your body. So it always tests those separately, a free T3 level and a reverse T3 level. Free T3, I've seen all different kinds of ranges. Some say they want the upper half of the range or the upper third of the range. I kind of vibe with that more. I think that the upper third of the range, you're just pretty much going to see people who are feeling a lot better in that range, but not everyone. And then you have the reverse T3. So this is something, it's basically free T3, but it's inactive. And in your body, this competes with your free T3. So when that number is high, it's basically saying like you have T3, but you have so much inactive T3 competing with it to get into your tissues and work that your free T3 is not working so well. So definitely at the minimum would check all of those. And then of course the antibodies, like so frustrating that doctors won't check these because I've, read things that people can have autoimmunity for up to 10 years or more and no one noticed because they never checked the antibodies. Like why? Why let this go on for so long, right? But yeah, so when you're looking at something like Hashimoto's, you'd be looking at ranges for TPO antibodies or TG antibodies would be elevated. And when you're looking at Graves' disease, you'll be looking at TSI or TRAB. Not all labs test both of these. Usually do the TRAB, which is TSI and a blocking antibody. So TSI is a thyroid stimulating immunoglobulin. And then the other one is a TBI, which is a blocking immunoglobulin. Say that 5 times fast. So when you're looking at the TRAB, it's both of those numbers together. And that is important for Graves' disease just because it'll tell you how stimulating it is, because some people end up with like a more hyperthyroid picture versus people who have some hypothyroid symptoms as well. So that can give you kind of accurate number for that. And it also helps to check those numbers when you have thyroid eye disease as well, just to gauge the disease severity. But the thing about the antibodies is that you can have a super high number, like in the thousands, and the person won't be very symptomatic or bothered. And then you can have someone with a mild elevation and they could just, really be struggling. So I wouldn't look at the antibody numbers as like, oh, if it's really, really high, it's really bad, or if it's really, really low, it's not that bad. Always look at the person and consider how they're feeling and then just use that as you go along as a marker to see like, is it getting better or is it getting worse?
Yeah, that's what I think is the most important with labs, right? It's just a deeper piece of information so we can kind of look under the hood and see what's going on. And then you can retest as you're doing and making the lifestyle changes so that you can know that what you're doing is working. I mean, one, you should be feeling better. But then two, it's also just good to just keep things in check too, especially if it's something that you're dealing with. So in the future, you can start to catch things sooner. You might be as your body gets stronger and more robust, you can handle more. So then, as you're doing labs, I mean, I think at a minimum, we should be doing a full wellness panel with all these thyroid labs once a year minimum. You might even, do you think even more often, especially for thyroid? Would you check thyroid levels even more for clients?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends how strong their symptoms are. Like for people with Graves, I'd say in the beginning, you're kind of getting them checked every few weeks because you're trying to figure out the dosing. And I guess that also applies with Hashimoto's too. Like, if you're trying to figure out your dose, so you change the dose, you wait about 3 weeks, you check it again. And then once you're more stable, you work your way up to every 3 months, every 6 months, every 12 months. I'm a nut. Like, I love to know as often as possible. So if I go to the lab, I'm just like, yeah, can you draw those for me? Because my endocrinologist has a standing order for me. And I'm like, okay, well, it's been 2 months, but I just want to check it again. But I think at the minimum, like every 6 months, I would want to see that.
Yeah, if you've been dealing with thyroid issues, I would agree with that. And then for everybody else, I think a minimum a year, like just a full wellness panel so you can catch things before they get worse. Or like we said, if you even once you've got through all that and you've kind of stabilized, if even if you're on thyroid medication, things like that, like initially it is more because I've done that with clients as well. But even once you get stuff more stabilized, at a minimum, a year, ladies, you got to be. So if you're listening, you're like, oh, I don't even remember last time I had my labs checked. It's probably time. Take a whole list into your provider and ask them. And again, here's the interesting thing is and I'm sure you've seen this too, working with a lot of clients, is there's some that can go to a provider and the provider does a pretty good job at ordering a bulk of what we ask for. They still don't ever get 100%. I've never had anyone order 100% of what my list I've sent them. And again, nothing is like, to me, they're not expensive, right? They're no wild, crazy labs, they're not really that expensive. And then I get some clients and their doctor orders next to none because they're like, well, why would we do this? Right. And you're like, it's so frustrating. So if you have a doctor that is not willing to work with you at all, you need to go find a new provider that will work with you and respect you in the sense that you know your body, you're learning about your body, you're taking this information in there. I always feel like our physician should be someone that we get to work with, not yes, they are the medical expert, but they don't learn a lot of this root cause unless you're actually working with someone that is functional and holistic, which is again where so many of us end up going that route because we're not getting what we need from the medical route. But at a minimum, because I know we get a lot of ladies that are going to be like, can I just get this through insurance? It's like, yes, insurance will generally pay for all these thyroid labs, but you just got to get your doctor to actually order them for you.
Yeah, and it's hard. I see a lot of people who their doctor won't order it, or they'll really be pushing for their free T3, and then the doctor will order their total T3, and you can't really do much with that number. So, yeah, it is really frustrating. And but there are ways to order it on your own. Yeah, we order a lot of things through LabCorp, especially a thyroid panel, but if you can't get your doctor to order that, there's ways to order that online. And then obviously working with a functional provider, they're gonna order anything you want, because they want to find the root cause just as badly as you do, you know? And yeah, just aside from a thyroid panel, there's some other nutrients that I would look at as well that have to do um, with autoimmunity and especially thyroid things. But I would definitely be looking at things like ferritin levels, just because I see a lot of people come in looking at their iron panel, which doesn't always have the ferritin on it. And the iron panel can look beautiful. And then their ferritin is at like 15 or 20, and they're like, I'm losing hair and I'm freezing. What's going on? And they don't know, is it their iron? Is it their thyroid? Is it both? So I'd say that's a really big one to look at, as well as vitamin D. I can't tell you how many people come in with a in range vitamin D at, I don't know, 29 or 32 or something. It's low, okay? It's low. It's gotta be higher than that to immune strength, and that really helps with autoimmunity. So those are the 2 big ones that I'm just like, you have to get those as well. And then just some other nutrients that are really important for thyroid health, like zinc, which is also really important for iron status as well, and your copper. Selenium is a big one too.
Yeah. Well, okay, so back to the vitamin D. I have a question. Do you have a level that you're like, this is a minimum that I like to get my clients to?
Minimum 50, but ideal would be like 70.
So it's vitamin D is people don't take enough of it. Like we gotta be taking that vitamin D. And I will tell you, once clients get their levels up, they feel better. They just flat out feel better. I had a client the other day that I was relooking at labs and or she had sent me some new labs and I was like, your vitamin D, that's the first thing that stood out to me. And I was like, you have got to get your vitamin D up. And so we get her started on it, which I'm like, and I live in the Midwest, like even on a sunny day like today in February, like you're not getting any vitamin D, even if you're out there in a swimsuit and 50 degrees, like you're not getting any. It's not happening. You have to be taking vitamin D. Now, you need to know your vitamin D levels. But again, I don't see people with high levels ever, ever, ever. Like you have to work to get your vitamin D levels up. And I know there's been research that's been done in even areas that it is warmer and you get more vitamin D on a regular basis. And people still have really low vitamin D levels in those areas too. So, number one, I always think it's important to know. But then, number two, you got to get your vitamin D levels up. And this client of mine, she was like, within a week of taking it, she was like, my knees are feeling better. And I'm like, amazing. Yes, it's just like, it's all the things. Like when your immune system is more supported, not only is it helping you through this whole season of all the junk that's going around, but it just helps you to feel better. And same, like you said, with the ferritin. So many things. And this is what I love about the functional holistic health space is we get to go and look at all the pieces and sometimes there's this one little missing piece that is getting missed. And you're like, that's could be the piece that really helps put all the pieces together.
No, absolutely. And just to touch upon the vitamin D thing as well, I think there is some information out there that says there's a lot of places in the world that no matter how much sunlight you get, you're just not going to absorb enough vitamin D. It's just something like with the position of the sun and the earth. And then they also say that it's between like 12 and 2 that there's the most vitamin D that you can absorb, which is also the most dangerous time to be out in the sun. So a lot of people are not out in the sun, or a lot of people are out in the sun, but they're using sunscreen, which is blocking the vitamin D. So there are a lot of elements that people don't think about. They're like, "Oh, I was in the sun all day." I was like, "Okay, but you were like under an umbrella and you were covered in head to toe in SPF, so you didn't really absorb any vitamin D that way." So and yeah, like I see that as well in the summer that people come in with really low vitamin D and especially in the winter, I think everyone should be supplementing. Like there's no way you're nearly getting enough daylight
No,
if
you
you're somewhere cold.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I was gonna share. So there's an app. It's called D Minder. It's like the letter D Minder. Have you used this, Elena, to track? So I've used it periodically. Obviously, this time of year I don't use it. There's none. But in the summer, like when I'm going to the pool more and I'm outside more, I've actually worked to try to track to see if I can get enough vitamin D being outside. And here's what I will tell you. If I really work at it and I pay attention and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be really diligent. I don't wear much sunscreen at all. I might in the very, very beginning, just because coming out of winter, that very initial sun that I get, I might put a little bit on just so I don't burn. But I also try to like ease into it too. So when I'm not wearing any sunscreen and I'm working to like be really diligent to try to make sure I can get enough vitamin D, I can do it, but it's really hard. Like you've got to have like a good hour every day in that peak time of the highest vitamin D to be able to be outside in the sun with like a bikini on. Like for real, that's the only way to do it in the summer. I've tested it. You guys can do it too. Test it this summer if you want to. Those of you that have to be really careful with the sun though, then that might not even be an option for you. So anyway, side note with that.
I'm gonna download that app. That's really cool.
Yeah.
D-Minder.
Yeah. It's kind of a fun
Nice.
thing to just play around with. And then it really can show you like, oh, wow, I didn't get much vitamin D at all, even maybe I was outside all day, but you were in like a tank top and shorts, but you're not getting near as much as like in a bikini laying down and really just like baking in the sun, which again, some people say, well, that's really bad for you because you could get skin cancer. And it's like, yeah, but there's a balance. I just think everything is about balance, right? A little bit of sun is really good for us. Too much, obviously, can be bad. So I think with everything, it's like, what's the balance there?
For sure. I agree 100%.
So, Elena, I want to circle back. You started talking about some of the key nutrients like zinc balanced with copper, selenium. Can we talk about iodine a little bit? I'm curious your thoughts on iodine, right? Because I'll just share really quick that like iodine we know has been talked about as being good for our thyroid, but those that have autoimmunity, it can be questionable. And I've actually had clients that when we're dealing with high level or higher levels of and when I say that, like, not in the thousands per se, but like, even just elevated to a point where they're dealing with symptoms and all that, I actually tell them, like, let's not take iodine for a while. Dr. Isabella Wentz is one who I've learned a lot about thyroid from. And again, things may have changed over the years, always new information coming out. But like, I've had clients actually stop taking iodine when we have flares of autoimmune dealing with thyroid. What are your thoughts on that?
So I love Dr. Isabel Wentz too. She's amazing. Also another thyroid pharmacist. Um, and her books are really insightful as well. Yeah, it's tricky. So your body needs iodine. Like you need iodine to create thyroid hormone. It's one of the most important cofactors in creating thyroid hormone, but it is absolutely 100% true that iodine can trigger thyroid autoimmunity and make the immune conditions worse. But I never tell anyone to go on like a low iodine diet unless they're a like really high iodine person. But I still tell people like you can eat fish in moderation and eggs and all these things. I think it shouldn't be like over a certain threshold, like the daily allowable limit or whatever, which might be around like 150 to 200 micrograms daily. Um, I usually would tell people like don't use a multivitamin that has iodine in it. Get iodine from natural sources like your diet. Um, but yeah, it's kind of hard. There are some practitioners that treat Graves' disease with high dose iodine. So it can really lower your thyroid. That's why I guess that's what I'm trying to say is it can really lower the thyroid. So if you have Hashimoto's, they say not to take it, but if it's not autoimmune, they say and you're hypothyroid, they say take the iodine, it'll give you a boost. So
There's
Don't overdo it.
verdict's still out on that. So yeah, don't overdo it. Find the balance. Yeah, I don't ever have clients like stop eating food that has naturally occurring iodine, but if they're supplementing with higher doses, that's where I'm like, let's just take a break from that for a bit. Help get that, especially with Hashimoto's. Again, that's what I've dealt with a lot more with clients than the Graves side. That's definitely your area of expertise. As I just see Hashimoto's seems to be a lot more common. But again, it's remember with so many things, ladies, it's also not necessarily a forever thing. It's just like I always look at things in like a period of time. Like we're gonna work on this protocol for a while to like, let's get your body, let's get things calmed down and then we reassess. And do you recommend even with someone that is gonna supplement with iodine using things like kelp supplements, things like that?
That's a no-no for
No.
me.
Okay.
It's a no-no. I do not ever encourage anyone with any thyroid condition to take any kind of, like, kelp or any of these high iodine foods or anything like that. I think just keeping it to, like, take your fish oil, eat your fish, but definitely don't take any extra iodine than you need to.
Good to know. Yeah. Get it from your food. Natural
Yeah.
food source. Then you're getting a little bit, but you're not overdoing it. Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Are there any other nutrients? So zinc, copper, selenium, iodine just from food. No additional supplementing if we're dealing with autoimmune thyroid issues. Oh, selenium, I should ask you. I know people will say like eat like a couple Brazil nuts daily to get your selenium. Personally, I don't like that because Brazil nuts tend to be very moldy nuts. What are your thoughts on that?
I've just been going through this myself because I'm only getting organic Brazil nuts, and, like, I had a few batches that I was like, "Oh, they're kinda moldy." So I I think also the thing with Brazil nuts is you never know how much selenium is in each Brazil nut. It really depends on the quality of the soil because the selenium is coming from the soil, and it's transferring into this beautiful Brazil nut. Um, but yeah, that could be anywhere from like 20 micrograms to like 90 micrograms in each nut. So you don't know the amount that you're getting. And there's been a few studies that came out saying that 200 micrograms or more could be really beneficial to help lower thyroid antibodies. So I think the best way to go is to go for like a thyroid selenium supplement. There's also some data that's showing when it's taken with myoinositol, it has even more reduction in thyroid antibodies. So there's some like nice combo products that you can use that have both of them. So I really do recommend people to do the supplement kind, at least at first, like in the first 6 months to 12 months of their journey. And then, I love food as medicine. Like, I really do try to encourage people to eat their vitamins. But I think when you're like in a fragile state where you're having flare ups and you're feeling unwell and you don't know your levels and your disease is very active, I definitely think that it's better to just do the supplement on that, just so you know what you're getting in it too. Am I eating 2 Brazil nuts and getting 20 milligrams? Am I getting 200? Should I be eating four? It's like you can just eliminate all of that confusion and, you get a nice third party tested supplement and you know exactly what's in there. You know that there's no heavy metals, there's no toxins, there's no mold, all of that.
Yeah. So take selenium with myo-inositol. What are your thoughts on taking selenium with vitamin E that is not from soy?
Yeah, I see vitamin E deficiencies in people a lot too, so I definitely think that those are beneficial together too. And some people do like the vitamin E with the NAC, which is really great for the liver as well and helps the body to detox. But yeah, I think these are all very thyroid supportive nutrients for sure.
I love this. Okay, you mentioned detoxing. What are your thoughts on clients with thyroid things going on and detoxification?
Yeah, detox is a little bit of a tricky one. I hate to see people going on like crazy detox protocols unless they have unless they test and they see like, okay, I have high levels of mold or heavy metals or Lyme and I need to detox this from my body. My body is not detoxing it, but I just feel like I see a lot of people coming in or asking for all these crazy detoxes and I'm like, you don't need this. But I do think it's nice to support your liver, so there are definitely like some nice gentle detox blends that help support your liver or just some liver supportive nutrients like NAC, milk thistle. And then, there's foods as well that are helpful, like green leafy vegetables. Cilantro is a good one to help the liver detox because especially when you're dealing with any hormonal things, your liver is packaging up the hormones and filtering out all these toxins. And if it's sluggish, like these things just get recirculated back into your system. So you really want to support the liver to help get everything out. And the liver is a huge factor in thyroid hormone health because it helps to get your inactive T4 into your active T3 hormone. So you're not going to get that conversion if you have a sluggish liver as well. So definitely need to support there.
Yes, for sure. Liver support. What about castor oil packs? I always feel like that's really gentle.
Yeah, I feel like they're kind of buzzy, like them. I don't know if every single person that I've spoken to who tried them had any actual effect from them. I've used it personally, like I've done castor oil on my thyroid, I've done castor oil on my eyes. I don't know if it really had an effect, but then I see other people online who have like this crazy transformation. I just don't personally know any of those people. Do you? Like, have you seen any?
I haven't had as many clients that have used it like directly over their thyroid because I know you can get like and just put it over your thyroid, which I don't think there's any downfall to it. I have found personally for me, I feel like usually when I do it, tend to sleep a little deeper, not always. And I go in spurts of doing them. And then I've had clients that if they deal with constipation, I do feel like it can really help get bowels moving for clients that deal with constipation. And again, maybe not everybody, but I do feel like that they definitely can be beneficial for clients. I get some clients like they end up loving them and it's like their thing. And other clients, kind of like you, where you're like, I don't know, if I really notice a big difference. So
It
like,
can't hurt.
yeah, there's really no downfall for them for sure.
It's not something that I reach for.
Yeah,
It
okay.
it's kinda like a supportive, like a self-care thing for sure.
So, what are your thoughts on infrared sauna? I personally love infrared sauna. And if I have someone that has, well, really any autoimmune, again, it depends on where they're at. The other thing I also say with that is I am a very big fan of starting clients low and slow. We never do anything like, boom. Like when I have clients that have autoimmune stuff at the studio, I'm like, okay, I always ask them. That's always a question. And I will usually always start them at a lower strength and a lower temperature. So, with that said, do you recommend infrared saunas for clients with autoimmune issues?
It really does depend. For Hashimoto's, yes. There has been some data, especially with the infrared and how it lowers antibodies and can help people get into remission. But for Graves, no.
Oh,
Just because the infrared can be very stimulating. And when you have Graves' disease, you're already overactive. So you definitely don't want to stimulate the thyroid any further. Also, like mixed reviews for thyroid eye disease. I even tried it for myself when my thyroid eye disease was active and it actually caused a little bit of a flare up. So I definitely wouldn't recommend it for anyone who's on the hyper side of the spectrum. But for Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism, there's definitely been some benefit. But yeah, and also, if you're gonna do sauna and you have hyperthyroidism, you're dealing with elevated heart rate and blood pressure and, excessive sweating and overheating, so definitely not something that would be pleasant for someone with a hyperthyroid condition,
yep.
but it
Makes
is
sense.
lovely. Once you're in remission or getting closer to it, it's definitely a nice tool for that. Because yeah, it helps your body to detox and it's natural. You don't have to take a pill or anything like that. It's just literally helping your body sweat out toxins, right? So
Yeah, I love it. I mean, again, like I said, I've never honestly worked with clients with the hyper side of autoimmune with thyroid. I've only ever worked with clients with Hashimoto's, and I've seen great success with getting clients that have Hashimoto's in a sauna. So that makes perfect sense.
yeah, it is amazing. And it's also just good self-care. It feels so good.
You got to put your phone away though. I always clients like, should I have
Yeah.
my phone. I'm like, you can, but I would recommend putting it away, giving this to be a little time for you to like decompress, be off of the socials, don't check email. And that's actually really, really hard. And I would say the harder it is for you, the more you probably need to practice doing it.
Absolutely. I kinda it freaks me out to go in there with my phone. I'm just like, "Is this, like, metal gonna overheat?" So, it's definitely a good time to, like, check out for, like, at least 15 minutes and, like, have a book or something, do a face mask or, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love it. Okay, we got to talk about movement a little bit because I love talking about movement. And I know when we're dealing with thyroid dysregulation, sometimes exercise is the last thing on your mind because you don't have a lot of energy, or you're on the other end of the spectrum and you maybe feel so wound up. So, will you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's so hard when you have a thyroid condition, especially if you're hypothyroid, because you're exhausted, right? Like you're oversleeping, you wake up tired, your muscles are weak, like you don't want to move your body, you have poor workout recovery, you don't want to do anything, but it's so important to like at least walk, you know? And do just gentle movements. I love, love, love yoga. Pilates as well is amazing. Gentle weightlifting or using your own body weight to support that movement. But yeah, it could be very hard. And same thing for the other side of Graves' disease because your heart rate is so elevated, you get easily fatigued. Your muscles are weak as well, you know, but it's important to do something to not have that muscle wasting.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's why I love my core rehab program has been so great for so many women because it's so gentle. It gets them moving, gets them breathing, gets them honestly slowing down to
Yeah.
actually then if you don't have a lot of energy, like you can get moving very gently and actually start to feel your muscles, feel your core, which then ultimately helps you move better in your day, which is always my goal for people, right? Is I want you to be as pain free as possible. So I love the movement aspect of it. And someone as myself who struggled with all sorts of health issues, different periods of my life, and knowing what it feels like to be like, "Oh my gosh, it's so hard to just get up and get moving sometimes," that, sometimes just a little bit can really go a long way, and that even doing a couple movements can actually give you a little bit more energy. So I do think it's so important to move, but make sure we're not feeling like, "Oh, I'm doing all the things." This is a scenario I feel like I see quite common, right? You've got women who have their thyroid is sluggish, they've gained the weight, and then they're, beating themselves up, number 1, and then they feel like they're depriving themselves of the good nutrient food because they feel like if they keep eating, they're just gaining weight, so they're undernourishing their body, and then they're like, "I gotta work out more to lose the weight," right? I feel like that it's such a vicious cycle so many women get in, and kinda goes back to us talking about, are we missing things that could be helping us? So, just a couple things there, ladies, just be kind to your body, right, Elena?
Absolutely, and I feel like, you know, when we gain the weight and we're like, "Okay, we gotta go hard on the cardio and do the HIIT workouts," and it's just like, that is actually the last thing you need to be gentle with yourself, like, go slow, you know, love your body, nourish your body. I actually see that as a root cause trigger sometimes of people who overtrain and they're overworking and they're overstimulating and it causes a lot of burnout. So yeah, I love core work. I think especially for women as we age, I think we lose our connection with our core and it's really important to keep that engaged.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we haven't really hit on food triggers. Can we talk about that briefly? Are there some common foods that you see can tend to trigger autoimmune thyroid issues for women?
Yeah, I was gonna say this is a big topic. I hope we have time. Yeah, there are so many food triggers that I see. I feel like the big one that everyone talks about first is gluten, of course. Such a huge correlation with gluten. And the interesting thing about gluten is that you might have no symptoms, but you might have a gluten sensitivity. I see that a lot when I do a lot of comprehensive stool testing with people who, you know, eat gluten. They have no symptoms from gluten, but then they have really high antibodies to it or, high markers that show that their body is sensitive to gluten. So, the thing with gluten is that it causes this thing called molecular mimicry, and the the molecule of gluten looks so similar in the body to the cells of the thyroid, and it can cause this autoimmune attack. So that's really, really interesting, and I do see that a lot of people improve once they cut out gluten, but not everyone. And then some other big ones are dairy. Dairy and gluten are very closely linked. The dairy is a big one, and also a lot of people struggle with things like candida, and they don't even realize it, and the dairy just makes that worse. Some other foods that can be inflammatory, soy, nightshades. Nightshades are a huge one. I feel like people don't really talk about that, but that's really, really big.
What are some common nightshades for our ladies listening, thinking about what
Yeah.
are those common nightshades?
Things like tomatoes, white potatoes, eggplants, peppers, even like seasonings, chili flakes and peppers and things like that, just to name a few really, really common ones that I see people struggling with. And I think one of the biggest things of all is sugar. People don't realize it. Sugar, and not just sugar, but carbs. Just eliminating this can cause huge changes. I mean, I've seen people just absolutely like transform their life, just they didn't know that they had insulin resistance because they eat too many carbs, or they eat it in the wrong order. They don't pair it with fats. They don't pair it with protein. And this stresses your body out. Like, it causes this low grade inflammation.
So when it comes to nutrition, what are your top recommendations? I mean, I'm hearing from you eat protein, eat good quality fats. I'm assuming good veggies that are not nightshades and fruits.
Yeah, like I like the Mediterranean diet, like lots and lots of veggies, healthy proteins with healthy fats. I love fish, chicken, and grass-fed meats and all that. Lots and lots of vegetables, low sugar fruits, like berries, kiwis, apricots. I definitely would encourage people from staying away from really, really sugary fruits, mangoes and pineapples and things like that, which are so delicious, like definitely in moderation. And if you do have that, have it with protein and healthy fats. And yeah, like nuts and seeds. A lot of people, they start with like an autoimmune protocol, which is basically where they are removing all of these food triggers, all the ones that I just mentioned. And they, to be a little more strict, they can also remove things like eggs. Some people are triggered by eggs. Some people can't tolerate any kinds of grains, nuts, and seeds. So it's very limiting. I definitely don't encourage people to do it long term. It's something that you do for 3 to 6 months and slowly introduce things back in.
Yeah, but at the same time, and if you're thinking like Mediterranean ways, like that's really, I think across the board, like that's how we should be eating most of the time anyway. And then the occasional sweet treat or whatever it is fine, right? Because when your base nutrition and even grains and stuff, I think a lot of people are actually more sensitive to grains. They just don't realize it until they get them out. And then when you do eat grains, not that they're, again, not that they're bad for everybody, but a little bit is usually okay. But it's like that eating too much of anything that causes, lots of inflammation is where it's not good. So, I mean, this advice is really honestly a good foundation for anybody preventatively as well. But I think with the thyroid ones, right, that you mentioned, so many of you that are dealing with or have dealt with thyroid issues in the past, like keeping just some of those good dietary things in mind because you feel better, right? You just flat out feel better. And I feel like so many times when we're thinking of nutrition, we have to not think about it in like, oh, I'm not eating these. I can't eat these things. Like we can't think about it like that. We got to focus on what are we eating that is actually nourishing our body. Because why are we doing that? We're doing that so that we can feel better, that we can function, we can go work our job, we can take care of our kids, we can, you know, and just live our life. And ultimately, that's what we need to keep reminding ourselves that that's why we're working to eat the way that we do. Like when I have people say to me, like, Eric, I could never eat the way that you do. And it's like, well, it's not necessarily that you have to eat the way that I do. I eat the way that I do for me because that's what makes me feel the best. And side note, you guys, I eat dark chocolate every single day. That's what keeps me like sane because I don't eat sweet chocolate, nothing sweet. It's like pure, it's like really good. Like I don't always, but it's always at least 70% or above. And sometimes I'll eat like 80 some percent chocolate. My family thinks I'm crazy, but I like it. My taste buds have adjusted. For me, that's a nice sweet treat. And I do it every day. Stuff like that, I think is fine because it's very, very, very low sugar. If it's true good chocolate, it's got fiber, it's got iron, it's got a little protein in it, right? Again, we're not using it as a protein source, but if you look at the nutrition label, if it's like pure, it's good. It's got good nutrients in it as well.
Yeah, dark chocolate is actually pretty healthy for you. I mean, it's very nutrient dense and it's rich in polyphenols, which I forgot to mention. Like, eat the rainbow. The more colorful your food is, the more nutrient dense it's going to be. And it's going to have antioxidants in them that protect your cells and boost your mitochondria. So, definitely things like dark chocolate and just other foods that have nice like fiber in them, some other common polyphenols that maybe we might not think of or reach for, but we can try to incorporate or things like ginger and green tea. But yeah, just having like a plate full of different colored veggies and things is really it's the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love it. Okay, as we wrap up here, what is for someone that say has been more recently diagnosed with a thyroid condition, what's like the number one thing you would say is the most important to do first? There's a lot of things. We talked about a lot of things. But like what's like the number one if someone needs to focus on moving them forward today?
There's so many things, and I if I could go back in time and just change anything about my journey is that I would have done like functional medicine testing sooner. Because when I first started my journey, I went to the doctors, they gave me the medication, I took the medication, great. Then I started learning about diet, I started changing my diet, things got a little bit better. And then, you know what happened? Like a flare up happened and things got worse because it's like I had all of these underlying triggers and I had no idea. So I just wish I like saved 2 years of my life and all of these flare ups by finding out what my root causes were. But I was stubborn. I was like, oh, it's fine. I'm going to be fine. I'll figure it out. Like, everything is fine. But it wasn't. I had a lot of stuff going on in my gut, which I think we didn't really get a chance to talk about that much, but like there was so many things going on in my gut. Like I had H. pylori, I had dysbiosis, I had candida, I had leaky gut, I had a parasite. And it's like I can do all of these things. I can take all of the supplements, I can do all of the protocols, I can change my diet, but literally none of that means anything if there's something going on in your gut. So and that's the thing that I see most commonly with every single person that every client I've ever had. So, I would start there, like, you know, but
Yeah. I think that's
yeah.
great advice is yeah, don't focus on the thing doing, going and getting the good tests and investing in your health. I know a lot of people say like it's expensive and it's like, yeah, I mean, it's sad in the sense that it is out of pocket, but like you said, it could have saved you 2 years of getting healthier 2 years sooner. And that's really what it is. It's like getting the quality of education, really, so that we can get the right testing done so you can actually see what's going on because you are right. I mean, like you said in the beginning, it's like the autoimmune, it's so much of it can be intertwined with the gut. And any sort of autoimmune means you've got generally some form of leaky gut going on. So we have to look at the gut one way or another. It's inevitable.
Yeah, and honestly, it is expensive, but I wasted so much money on supplements and guessing what I needed, and I saw this supplement or this nutrient can help, but it's like, what is the point of taking these supplements or these nutrients if it's not what you actually need, like what your body needs? Like you can't guess that.
100%. And absorption is very important. I feel like
Yeah.
so many women, I see it, they get stuck in the cycle. They're doing all these things to fix whatever it is, and they get a little bit better and then like get a flare and like, but they're ultimately like, I'm not really getting where I'm going. But like you said, it's you spend all this money on things that you're probably not absorbing a lot of them, especially when there is, and usually I would say with any health stuff, there's a gut thing intertwined with it because so much is all in our gut, right? So it's really about investing in your future now so that you can get moving forward and actually work on healing your body from the root cause perspective, which is which is so important. So important. So, Dr. Elena, this has been amazing. As we wrap up, I know we've talked about a lot, but is there anything that we haven't mentioned yet that you want to make sure to share with all of our ladies listening?
Yeah, I would just say that like seeking the support of your community is really important. Like, in my journey, I was feeling so depressed and anxious and isolated, and I just like it really helped me to connect with other people who are going through what I'm going through, and that was actually really hard to find. So I created a community of thyroid girlies. So yeah, if anyone is feeling that way, like just know that you're not alone. There is a community out there for you, and we know what you're going through, and you're always welcome to join us. And yeah, I think that that was something really important that stood out in my journey.
Yeah, I will tell you, especially with thyroid, you are not alone. There's a lot of women out there dealing with thyroid something. It's so common today. And I feel like we could do a whole other episode, Elena, talking about why are we seeing such a rise in autoimmunity? After all this conversation, I'm like, what is going on? I mean, I have my thoughts and things with all that. So we'll have to revisit that one of these days.
Happy to. I got a lot of thoughts on that too.
I'm sure you do. I'm like, we could have a whole other topic about that. Will you share with everyone where they can reach out to you? And of course, as always, I will put everything in the show notes so that way they can reach out to you to if they have questions.
Of course. So, my handle is Thyroid Love Club. It's the same pretty much on all on all social media networks. I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on YouTube, though I'm not too active on YouTube. But yeah, mostly if you want to get in touch, message me on Instagram. And then my website is thyroidloveclub.com. The links on there have a bunch of juicy guides that I made, pretty much sharing everything that I learned in my journey and all the things that you can think about. You know, there's a lab interpretation guide and how to get all those labs and how to get your functional medicine root causes and how to grow your hair back and all that fun stuff is there. I'm also available one-on-one for consultation. And yeah, I think that's it.
Well, Dr. Elena, thank you so much. You're doing such amazing work. This is definitely needed. Again, I have so many conversations with women with thyroid things going on, and I'm like, okay, we get it. Something has to change, right? So, so
Definitely.
Dr. Elena, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode of Core Connections. If you found this helpful, please share it with a friend who could benefit from today's conversation. And come connect with me over on Instagram at Erica Ziel. I'd love to hear your biggest takeaway. Until next time, keep moving forward and living the active, pain-free life you deserve. The material contained within is provided for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. You should seek medical care for any specific health issues and consult your physician before beginning a new regimen or purchasing any products.